As the channel uncovers more and more information regarding this collision between the Norwegian frigate and this tanker, this Maltese tanker, some striking similarities have come to light between this and the Fitzgerald investigation. And in today's video, I'd like to share some of that new information that I've been able to glean. There's a report out now that the two bridges were in communication with each other. Now, that didn't happen aboard the Fitzgerald until allegedly after, but there was a report at the time that the ACX Crystal, the ship that hit the Fitzgerald over a year ago, had tried to contact the command crew of the Fitzgerald with no response. In this particular case, however, there is an allegation that there was back and forth. The tanker had sent out a message asking if this frigate had a plan for safe passage, and was informed that it did and that things were quote-unquote under control. Now, there is a map, the first one that I've seen, that actually shows the path of the frigate in relation to the tanker. And I'm going to try to zoom in here and show this. The red is the frigate, the blue is the tanker. The tanker is moving north, the frigate is moving south. Apparently crossed its bow, and the starboard side of the frigate impacted the starboard side of the tanker, and that's what led to this gash right here. Now, this looks exactly like what you would expect in the early days of the Fitzgerald investigation, when they alleged that the Fitzgerald was moving at 20 knots. When it hit the ACX Crystal, you would have expected a punch and then ripping, like you see here, all the way back through the flight deck. Nothing like that occurred with the Fitzgerald. That's how we know that was a lie. There's also this. This frigate was one of 5 frigates that took part in Trident Juncture, one of the largest NATO exercises that has taken place in this region in years. The newly stood up Second Fleet of the United States has caused a great deal of consternation in Moscow, and they widely condemned this exercise. Canada, the Netherlands, Italy, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Finland, and the United States. 35,000 troops, 70 ships, and 130 aircraft. So not some small event. The channel has been also very lucky, to have been contacted by a member of the Norwegian military. Someone going by the name of Frank Ark sent me a message, states as thus: I am an OF2 in the Norwegian Army, so my Navy experience is limited to colleges and friends in the Army and Navy. But anyway, this is a big disaster for the Norwegian Navy. Since we lost one of 5 frigates, Norway is the only NATO country that has a border to Russia and has always been tactful in the policy towards Russia until recent years, when we have been allowing the presence of U.S. Marines in Norway in temporary bases, which did not happen during the Cold War. And I will go ahead and link you the rest of this, but he basically explains why this is not an accident. This is a message from Moscow. During the investigation into the Fitzgerald, we uncovered this report from 2014 that showed very clearly how there were forces out there that had the ability to mess with ship tracking. They could show ships were inland, they could show they were on different tracks, they could show them as invisible. And it could all be done from an apartment 1,000 miles away, using Class B transponders and antennas and a laptop. Now, allegedly in this case, the AIS was turned off. And there's also speculation that the stealth nature of this frigate didn't allow the radar to pick it up, but that would have you would think that would have been a problem before now, and it hasn't been. I'm just scrolling down here through this report, and I'll link this for you to show you the things that they are able to do. Like in this particular map, it shows a U.S. ship approaching the North Korean coast. Here it shows they have taken the word owned and made a pathway out of it. How they can take an actual ship that's out there and move it to an entirely different location, from a river here in the Mississippi to downtown Dallas. Now, here's the odd thing about radio hacking. There was this idea, this report, that the bridge of the frigate said that they had everything under control. May or may not be the case. And this is all it takes: laptop, antenna, and Class B transponder. And let me see if I can find the... This is the representation that was put out after this happened. The red ship here is the tanker. Of course, the frigate you won't see until it's hit, which was here. So, very, very strange that it would have crossed across the front of this ship and done so in a way that would have caused a collision, given that they had plenty of room to maneuver either way. It's a very deep channel, and it's not like if they would have gone to starboard over here that it would have caused any major issues. We'll play this one more time just to show this. This little blue vessel here is a tug, just an escort. What strikes me as strange, though, is that after the collision happens, this tug doesn't do anything, doesn't stop, doesn't turn around, doesn't attempt to render assistance in any way, and it would have had to pass by this vessel. We'll play this again. Okay, now, here the collision's already happened. You would have assumed that there would have been radio communication between this tug and the tanker and the frigate. Why does the tug continue on? See, because here was the collision. This tug wasn't pushing this. That was my initial allegation, and in Mr. Ark's message, he tells me that's not the case. That another tug all the way back here, the Ajax, has to come all the way from port to help. And you can see that here. This one never turns around. Why would you not have done that? It was an absolute act of amazing seamanship to get this vessel to ground so that it didn't sink completely. So I'm very much wondering now how they are going to explain this. Because, I know how our media is going to do it. They're just going to bury the story. They're just not going to report on it. But over in Europe, especially in Norway, there's going to be some serious questions. This crew had just got done with this massive exercise. These guys would have been on their game. This wasn't a tired crew, a crew that just got off leave, a crew that just got out of whatever their equivalent of basic training is. This was a very high-speed crew. That Norway is a very seafaring nation. It's not that our sailors are worse. It's just that this is what they do. And the idea now that we have the fingerprints of a Black Sea type event, two different NATO countries, the United States operating in Asia and a NATO ally operating once again close to Moscow, giant air quotes there, shows that there may be some type of an asset available to the Russians that can either intercept communications, shut down control of vessels, or show vessels are places that they're not. And you don't need to do very much. As we saw in the McCain and as we saw in the Fitzgerald, it was only a matter of a couple dozen feet one way or the other. Would have made a huge difference. In the case of the Fitzgerald, 2 or 3 knots, one way or the other, faster or slower, and the entire collision doesn't happen. We don't have enough information here yet to see that, but when we look at this, and we see all the room for maneuvering, and the fact that they were in communication, I don't know how anybody buys this as an accident. The issue with the Porter, and I'll leave with this, the issue with the USS Porter, when it, in 2012, when it collided with the MV Ottawazan, we had audio from that bridge. And the speeds were very slow. And you could tell that the commander was making a bad decision. And it was very, very tight quarters. Not the case here. Not the case with the Fitzgerald. Somewhat the case with the McCain, but still, there were some things that happened there that still to this day are not explained. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The most dangerous weapon you can have, the most effective weapon you can have on the battlefield is the one that your enemy doesn't know you have. And I will leave it there. But this is more than likely a response to Trident Juncture. Like, share, subscribe.